crushed some home runs. I mean, as you know, you're there, the in-game host, 2009 through 2011 seasons. You're watching the Rockies every day. They're just a little few years past of when they were in the World Series, as you mentioned. So, what was it like getting really one of the best seats in the ballpark night in and night out watching the Colorado Rockies?
So I was that in-game host that may have annoyed a lot of people because I was the one giving away, like at the time, now I'm dating myself, but you already said what year it was, like giving away the iPods and all those things and hosting like the fun game shows. And I did that for 2 seasons, but obviously like the natural byproduct and benefit of the gig was just getting to watch every single home game night in and night out and, becoming so invested in it. And it was great because our control room for like the in-game show, we all had, headsets and we were all able to talk to one another. And it became like such this like tight knit group, and the conversations that we would have, because obviously baseball is a bit slower, was so much fun. But it was great watching the team at that time. And I mean, you have these like tremendous players out there on the diamond. You have these great teams that come in the rivalries. And but again, it really was the come from behind wins. I mean, there wasn't like a specific player that stood out, but I mean, we did have in 2010, we had a Baldo Jimenez who was absolutely lights out. And to see a starting pitcher experience that kind of success in Coors Field was obviously, number one, extremely rare, and number two, very exciting. And then, of course, you had the Troy Tulowitzkis, and Todd Helton was still playing at the time. And, Todd Helton, the Todd father, as we like to call him, was, and I know that's also the nickname for Todd Frazier, so I understand, but Todd Helton was the Todd father before Todd Frazier. I'm going on the record saying that. Probably not going to be a popular opinion here on the East Coast. But it was so great. Honestly, it was such a treat. And, we actually had a playoff game postponed in October in 2009. So it was just like, it was all sorts of craziness. And I just got to kind of like stand back and witness all of that. And I'm so thankful to have been there.
So LG, we wanted to ask you about your time at Altitude Sports, because you got to cover a bunch of different teams at a bunch of different times. You got to cover a bunch of different players. So tell us your experience about how you got your foot in the door there, your experiences that you got to meet people there. So I just wanted to ask you, who are your favorite people, or if there's a particular person that you've met during your time there, who stands out the most? And obviously this lifestyle affords you the opportunity to travel to a lot of different places and a lot of different locations. So I also wanted to ask you, what do you think your favorite place to visit during your time there was?
So obviously I want to say that I left Altitude on the best of terms and I miss them dearly, but everyone understood that it was for an opportunity I could not pass up to come to New York City and, live the dream of working for, 2 major networks combined with DAZN, which is this up and coming exciting platform. So it really was a really tough decision to make because I loved it so much at Altitude, and that was primarily because of the people. Obviously, it was like my hometown. It was the dream job if you think about it. You're, living in your hometown, covering the teams that you grew up cheering for, standing on the field for Broncos training camp, walking out on the ice after every Abs win at home, traveling and staying at these great hotels. And, we're covering the Nuggets, we're covering the Rockies, we're doing everything, college sports, hosting a fantasy football show that was syndicated nationally. So the person, though, that stands out most, and this doesn't take anything away from all of the tremendous people that I had worked with, but Ken Miller, who's the president of Altitude Sports, was actually the EP over at Fox Sports Rocky Mountain when I was interning there. And he had worked with Alana Rizzo, Carissa Thompson, Joel Klatt, and he really just has this way of seeing people for who they truly are and encouraging them to really just like come into their own in a way. And he always trusted me to kind of do more than I thought I was capable of. And that was really empowering and really great. I'll never forget when I hosted my first hour-long Avalanche pregame show, and I was so nervous. And he's like, it's okay. Like, you can do it. Go be you. Will you make mistakes? Absolutely. And that is okay. And, fast forward, to the end of that season, and I was so comfortable hosting those pre and post game shows that were an hour long each, combined with the intermissions and all that. And it was just such a great experience working for him because he really believes in his people, and he's a TV guy. He'd worked in the trucks, he'd ran camera. So he's just really good to his people. So number one, Ken Miller, to this day, like, we're great friends, and I am so thankful for all of his guidance. And as far as like favorite place to travel, I mean, we got so lucky, especially traveling to all of those NHL cities. I mean, obviously Vancouver stands out. Any of the Canadian markets, Montreal, just so cool. I mean, you know, you have it's a dual language city, and people are just seamlessly floating, you know, back and forth between English and French. And it's just this culture that is just, it's so beautiful and so robust. In some of these arenas, you know, you can really feel like you are walking like, you know, within like the bowels of this like cathedral of hockey. In Toronto the same way. Even Winnipeg, guys, I got to tell you, Winnipeg, not the best place to visit in January or February, but it has its own charm because it's all they care about is hockey. That's
right.
all they have to do in the winter. And then there's some great U.S. cities. So, gosh, it's hard to pick just one, but I cannot tell you how incredibly lucky I was to have worked with such tremendous people, to have had those opportunities to travel and to cover all those teams and events. And man, like I think there were times when I would pinch myself. I'm like, wow, this is really happening.
Other than the Pepsi Center, what's your favorite hockey stadium?
Ooh, God, if I said this, like every Avalanche fan would probably just like burn me at the stake, because two of them, I would say the new Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. Ooh. And I did get to see the Joe in person. The Joe was great, and it was just it had all of its own charm, but it was time for a new arena. They did a tremendous job with that new arena in Detroit, and it feels like what it should feel like. And they did a great job of bringing like different pieces of like memorabilia over, like the old bench, and it's interactive with fans, and like, you know that the Red Wings play there. I will say Minnesota Wild, their arena is great too, but like Avs fans will hate me for that. But and then of course like any rink in Canada, but in particular, you know, Montreal, and then of course Toronto, because Toronto is kind of like the center of the hockey universe. And it is really like when I would go to any sort of like a practice for the Broncos, or, you know, any training camp, and it's just like insane, obviously NFL in the United States, that's how it is in Toronto, or really any Canadian market, but especially Toronto. So those two, but it's just kind of great because you have this like this really cool feel. And then of course in Winnipeg, like the fans are literally on top of you, and it's such a small arena, and it's so intimidating for those players to step out onto the ice, because those fans are not going to give you a single inch.
Absolutely. And, you know, Lauren, Joe, Joe, are you surprised that Lauren has no love for the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, I'm a little offended by that.
I mean, it's in your last name, basically.
Okay, MSG, guys. Obviously, Madison Square Garden is iconic. And yeah, it was great. It was great walking up the ramp. Like with our broadcast, we were always kind of doing like, we also had our weekly show. So we were doing things for digital, for the broadcast, for the weekly show. And we did this whole thing where we looked up the history of the garden, and, you know, like Barnum and Bailey, they would have the elephants walk up that same ramp, and Muhammad Ali, and like all these great iconic moments that took place with, you know, inside the walls of this building in Midtown Manhattan. So yes, of course, I'm sorry. What a horrible oversight. I'm literally sitting in Uptown Manhattan right now, and I feel shame, but yeah, incredible. And that's also guys, where one of the biggest upsets, at least in modern boxing history, took place when Anthony Joshua was upset by Andy Ruiz Jr. just this past June. It was almost a year ago on DAZN.
What a pro, plugging her
That's
network.
A big time.
Guys, full circle. I know where my bread is buttered.
We'll be getting to DAZN, that's for sure. But, Joe, I think you had a question about hockey.
I did. So, LG, obviously, you know, I worked for the NHL, NHL.com. Back in February, we had one of our Stadium Series games. It was the LA Kings against the Colorado Avalanche, and it was special because it was at Air Force Academy. And from what I know, I remember watching you, and I remember just the joy, the excitement, It was so palpable on the screen. You look like you were having the time of your life, and you look like that was like one of the best experiences of your life. Take me through that day, because I know it's probably very special for you as it was for everybody else at the NHL.
Joe, thank you. Honestly, that's like one of the biggest compliments I could receive, that excitement was palpable. And I hope I brought some joy to you guys watching that, because I literally just got like tears and just kind of welling up in my eyes, knowing that was one of the last big events with fans that, you know, we were all able to be a part of prior to, you know, the COVID outbreak. And yeah, number two, I come from a family, like my cousin serves in the Air Force currently. He flies U-2 spy planes. My uncle flew KC-10s in the Air Force. And then obviously my grandpa, aforementioned earlier in this interview, was a JAG and a colonel in the Air Force. So not only is that academy special to me, I've covered a handful of football games down there. And then of course it's in my home state with my hometown team, the Avs. So like, it was literally like one of the most special events, like you said, Joe, that I've probably ever covered before my life. And the NHL did a tremendous job with just the aesthetics of what the, you know, everything around the rink itself, the setup. And here's a story that I absolutely love. Not only did I get to bond with, you know, our coworkers, producers, Weeksy, JMO, Jameson Coyle, Kevin Weeks, and but for me, I think the most special part of that entire experience was, you know, the Avs fans. I didn't realize how connected they felt, and I always felt this connection because like they were my people. I'm like, this is my hometown. I get to be the lucky conduit that gets to go and like try to share all these experiences with you guys. And so this gentleman reached out to me on Twitter via DM, and he said, hey, like, I'm going to be at the game. I'd love to see you. Have you sign a puck for me? Which I'm like, guys, I'm going to devalue this puck, but if you really want to meet up. But he was undergoing cancer treatment. And I was just like, wow. Like, he said it in passing to the way where he wasn't like using it, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like, not only I tried to meet up with every fan, but I forwarded the message, or I like sent a quick text on to the equipment manager, and I'm going to give him a shout out because he's a tremendous human, Brad Lukow with the Avalanche. And I was like, is there anything we can do for this guy? I want to go beyond just signing a puck for this guy with my autograph. So he actually took the captain of the Avalanche, Gabe Landeskog's nameplate for his locker, and he had Landy sign it. And so he found me, he gave it to me. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I'm trying to like find this guy, and I finally found him up by the NHL Network set. And his reaction when I handed him that nameplate, like, he had tears, I had tears, the other fans around us were like in tears. And it was just so beautiful to see how, I mean, obviously the sport on the ice itself is so cool. Like, it's these unscripted dramas, right? And it's so inspiring, and it provides an escape for all of us. But I think more important than that, it transcends all of our differences, and it brings people together from all different walks of life, and we share these beautiful moments. And I will have to say, one thing I'm really going to miss is that, like, that direct contact, that direct interaction with fans, because even like going up to the set, like, all these people are like, LG, like, they're giving me hugs. And to me, like, that's why I do this. I love connecting with people, and it was just so genuine and so beautiful. So aside from, you know, all the great moments of that event, I think that moment in particular will stand out in my mind, you know, throughout the course of time.
Yeah, that's certainly incredible. And Lauren, you're one of the nicest people in the business, so it's really even more surprising you have a 5 on Uber. But I want to move on to a really monumental day in your career. February 25th, 2019, you were skating in a relay race or some sort at an intermission at Pepsi Center, and you got nailed with a T-shirt gun. How painful was that?
You guys still have to pay John Michael Lyles back for that one. Yeah, so we got roped into this thing, and marketing with the Avalanche is like, we have a great idea, guys. We're going to have John Michael Lyles, one of the newer studio analysts for the Avalanche on Altitude, played for the Avs for years and years and years. This great offensive defenseman. Went on, I think he played for Toronto, then the Bees, and then he finally retired. And Mark Rycroft, who, you know, had a great career with the St. Louis Blues, and then went on to play for the Avs. And now he's just like one of the best analysts in the business, in my opinion. And one of my close friends, we actually used to call Colorado Eagles games together back in the day. So we go way back. So the whole the premise was that they were both going to captain these relay race teams. And they're like, you know what, we'll just get we'll have some of the girls hockey players, high school girls hockey players that